Hey folks, welcome back to HVAC Talk with Huff. I'm Huff. I'm excited today for what you're about to see. The other day I had a wonderful opportunity of interviewing and speaking with Ed and Eric of Amply Energy. They have built a wonderful product for doing load calculations using Lidar scan technology. You're going to hear their story about how they got started, why they built the product, and also they're going to see a demo of the product, and they're even going to talk about some future things that they have planned. So I'm excited for you to hear from both Ed and Eric and listen to them tell their story in their own words. So I hope you enjoy. By the way, if you look down in the description down below somewhere, I don't know how I do that. There you go. If you look down in the description, you're going to see their address for their website, and go check them out. All right, so I want to start off with the first question, and it's this, right? Behind every great product, there's a great person or persons with a passion. So what I would like to hear is the Amply story.
Eric,
sounds great.
You're the original passion. You want to do
it? Sure. So it's interesting. The connection to Rewiring America is pretty strong. Ed mentioned just before we started recording, we both, followed Saul Griffith's work pretty closely before even really Rewiring America was born. Both read his book. We both got signed copies. I remember in early 2021, I was starting to pull data from EIA 861 sources. This is like, all the data that Saul pulled together for those Sankey diagrams and the billion machines paper, because we were trying to figure out, within the challenge of electrification and decarbonization, where's the low hanging fruit? Where are the biggest challenges? I just remember when that study came out that Saul did, I kind of fell out of my chair because I was like, oh my gosh, this is incredible work that's just been done. And now we can use this. And it really helped guide us towards founding Amply and focusing on residential decarbonization in particular as the pain point to address. So, in the early days, we actually were direct to consumer. We were doing whole home electrification. We were designing projects for homeowners using our own custom-built software. So we were doing heat pumps, heat pump water heaters, weatherization, solar, batteries, EV charging, you name it. And we electrified about 24 homes across the Northeast. And we learned a lot. One, it's super challenging working with homeowners, and that for every project we did, we were spending the vast majority of our time, both from a software development perspective and like a project management perspective, trying to figure out the right heat pump designs. And every project that we did involved heat pumps for space heating and cooling. And our partners we were working with, who were doing the actual install work, kept asking us, well, how the heck are you guys doing these designs? Can we use your software? And we're like, oh no, this is our private, software. You can't use it. And
it's not that great. It's like, it's stitched together with 15 different things. Like, you guys wouldn't want this.
Yeah. And until we realized, like, you know what, we're actually going about this the wrong way. We realized we should really focus on HVAC. That's where all the comfort is, or a huge portion of the comfort challenges are for home. It's a 24/7 problem. It's where almost half of the carbon is in a home, primarily tied to heating. And it's absolutely the most challenging technical problem. We could pull together a solar design, batteries, all that kind of stuff pretty quickly. But man, getting a heat pump design right, with all the different details, it's a real challenge. And so we pivoted the business to focus on serving HVAC contractors who are all about heat pumps, and they became our customer, and we focused our energy around that.
One thing to add there, like in the early days, so Eric's a mechanical engineer. After I read Saul's book, and it was right when my wife and I bought a condo, so it must have been like 2019. Eric was who I called to electrify my condo. And so we were sort of, my condo was almost the first kind of test run way back when. And Eric had done that for like a bunch of friends and family. It was very common for him. And so the early days of Amply were kind of, how could Eric build a process that made me a good home electrification advisor? I think we called it affectionately like make Ed productive and good. Like how can Eric build all the stuff that's needed to make Ed productive and good? And that was actually a very good platform for like just making comfort advisors faster and more accurate in the home, which is how we then ended up saying comfort advisors, not homeowners, should be our customer.
Wow, that's really cool. It's amazing to kind of listen to that journey of where you started to where you are now, right? But it's also makes sense at the same time, right? So it's just a very unique journey. So how did that? So obviously, at this point, you changed your focus and say, okay, now we need to be focusing on how to do this and build this tool, right? And so, what went in that process of bringing together Amply, and how did you decide with that platform, and how that would work? And so, what all went into that? I think that would be like really sounds very difficult.
Yeah, I mean, so as part of our our early business model, we spent hundreds of hours in trucks with HVAC comfort advisors, installers. We spent time in the back office with administrative folks, really trying to understand all the different challenges across their business. And once we had a good sense of the real problems, the real challenges, that allowed us to kind of figure out what's the right set of solutions and the right team we need to build around it to deliver a product and an offering that would address those pain points. And the thing that we saw over and over again, we're in the Northeast. We see a lot of people are working in rural areas. We felt like a critical design aspect of our product is that it needed to work offline. It needed to be reliable in any conditions, whether you're in a basement, you're in a rural area. It needs to work just like a hammer. You pull out that hammer, you can trust that it's going to work every time to do its job. So that was an early principle we put in place from a software design perspective. And so when we were thinking about hiring a team to help us build a product like that, we were looking for people with that kind of expertise and also passion for the space to kind of build out the team and address the challenge.
And we were spending those hundreds of hours because like the first design we did, we handed it off to a heat pump installer that we were sort of just getting to know, and they never opened our design. And then we got a quote back, and we're like, this is, and so we started to get to know them. We're like, look, we like you guys. You're super high quality. Why didn't you look at the design? And, we got this whole series of answers, and it was like pulling a thread. So like we got in the truck with the comfort advisor. It's like, go to the next house together, where then we like looked at the design together. And then we had to go to the back office to say like, well, we thought pricing would be this. Why did the pricing come out this way? It was just trying to serve our homeowner customers, our joint homeowner customers, that we went down this road, and we just saw the same problems over and over again. Like, how do you size it right? How do you pick and place the right units? How do you communicate that to the install team? How do you make sure the homeowner and the comfort advisor and the install team are all on the same page? Because like there's aesthetic questions, there's comfort questions, there's a lot of misinformation about what savings you can expect. We started doing our work in Maine. A lot of people were like, well, this is air conditioning and I might use it in the shoulder seasons. We're like, wow, like now there's this homeowner education piece. So we basically through that we went to the first point. We're like sizing, taking pictures, communicate to the homeowners the place to start. What could we do? And Eric's a super talented guy, self-taught software engineer. And we just sort of strung together a beta version. And once the beta version, we're like, oh my God, people are using it. And then we got a couple of grants, like practically we got grants from the state of Massachusetts and Maine. I'm in Massachusetts, Eric's in Maine, like deeply grateful to those states for those grants. Few friends and family invested because we'd been at it at this point, 18 months, Eric. And they knew we were in it 100%. And that was enough to hire 2 engineers to work for Eric full time. And then it was like, all right, we got to go. And from there, it was probably 3 or 4 months of working on that beta version before we realized we can't go anywhere without ACA approval. Like the sizing needs to be ACA certified for Manual J. And so then we stopped everything. We're like, that is the one focus. And Eric and a team of 2 cracked Manual J and got us approved in 9 months. And so that was July of 2024, like 7, 8 months ago. And I think that was the real birth of us being like, okay, we got something here, we can go. But, all in from when we decided to focus on software Huff to like realizing we might actually be okay was a solid 15, 16 months. Like it was a long journey. It was not short.
Yeah. Well, it's quite the investment. You definitely have to be forward thinking, right, and know what it is that you're trying to accomplish to be able to sustain that and get there, right? It's got to have some
Yeah.
clear path forward. And so I'm going to throw you a curveball. You can elect not to answer this, but so I believe in electrification. You guys believe in electrification, obviously, right? But I also run into a lot of contractors that aren't quite there where we are. And so have you talked to contractors about that? And if so, how do you go about having that conversation with contractors to really to grab a hold of electrification?
You want me to take this one, Eric? Do you want to do it?
You go ahead.
So we don't talk about electrification much at all. We talk about heat pumps. We talk about comfort. We talk about performance. We talk about business opportunity. Like we're about to release another episode of the Heat Pump Podcast, talking to Mike Gunderson in Chicago, who he's 99% heat pumps, and most of those are dual fuel. And I think the quote we're going to open that with is where he's like, no one should install ACs anymore. Like, why would you install an AC? And so, the heat pump it does that better. And the fact that it can then take over a bunch of the load in the winters, and you can get better efficiency. And depending on where you are, maybe that's cost savings, maybe it's not. But you know what? With that variable capacity, not going to have a 2-stage furnace, like turning on, turning off all the time, blast the hot air and then nothing. And your, thermostat's going like this. Like the heat pump just runs. Like it's just more comfortable. So when we talk to contractors, it's really about the heat pump opportunity. And there are tons of business benefits from focus. Like we've seen this with some of our installer subcontractors from Ampli 1.0. We talk about Ampli 1.0 when we served homeowners, and Ampli 2.0 is when we served contractors with software. We saw how efficient they were when they do one kind of equipment, and even one manufacturer. Like we just do Mitsubishi or Daikin or Fujitsu or Samsung. The what that can do to your inventory management and your parts management and your training program. So then we talk about, look, like why would you install ACs, like switch to heat pumps? And then, if you size it right, you only need to install heat pumps and maybe some electric strip backup, like maybe some dehums, but like, you're really narrowing your SKU count and you can serve your homeowners better. So though we have an electrification passion, I can't remember the last time I was on a customer call where the word electrification came out of my mouth. It's all about the things that I just said.
And, our view is that, HVAC, the industry led the sort of electrification 2.0 many years ago. If you think of electrification 1.0 is like the Rural Electrification Act, when we truly like got electricity to homes for the very first time, back in the 1900s to like 1950s. But electrification 2.0, that was really from 1950 to, I'll say, like roughly the early 2000s. And that was about air conditioning and the HVAC industry, actually getting central air into homes for the very first time. So the this is like the old is new again. They led the charge for the previous, 50 years, and this is just the next wave. And oh my gosh, so many incredible businesses were created out of it. A whole incredible trade was created out of electrification. So let's just do it again. And it's just a massive opportunity to help homeowners be more comfortable and to build great businesses. And a awesome secondary benefit is the decarbonization piece. But as Ed said, we don't really focus on that a ton. We just think it's a business opportunity. It's it's something that this industry has already done before. So let's just do it again.
Yeah, that's an amazing answer. It was kind of what I was hoping for, because right underneath that, it was like, why do you love heat pumps, right? Because I was kind of hoping it would flip into that. It reminds me of a video that actually Jim Bergman had done. Is like, there are a lot of reasons. There are a lot of reasons to do heat pumps, right? And I agree with Nate Adams. I don't think we should ever sell another air conditioner, right? Why get something you could only use for a few months out of the year when you could do a heat pump? Even if they're not quite sold on everything, even if they have to go dual fuel to get them over the hump, right?
Sure.
I have installed dual fuel for people who were actually they were very leery of a heat pump. And I'm like, look, I'm not installing an air conditioner, so we could do a heat pump, and we'll stay with your fossil fuel furnace as the backup. But here's what we're going to do. And I actually set the lockout temperature lower than they thought it should be, only for them to say, "Man, that thing is keeping up. It's amazing, right? What this thing is doing." And then they're like, "Can you set it lower?" We don't want to spend any money on fuel if we don't have to, right?
Yeah.
Right.
And when you look at the efficiency, right, when you think about the COPs and how much you're getting back versus how much you're putting in, the numbers really tell a beautiful story. So I did a balance point worksheet for a presentation I did last week for NCAP. And I did a balance point worksheet on the home that I grew up in. I live in that home today. When my father passed, we ended up remodeling, but it's still the same footprint of house. And so I grew up with an oil furnace, and we nozzled it down to a 65,000 BTU. And so when I ran the load using the beautiful Amply product, 23,000 BTU heat load at 15 degrees, right? 22,000, like 400 and some change.
Yeah.
65,000 BTU oil furnace. The last time that I clocked that furnace, well, last time I checked it with a combustion analyzer, we had it dialed up to about 78% efficient, right? But still, we're talking over 50,000 BTUs every time it came on.
Yeah.
I only needed 23 at 15 degrees outside. So
Yeah.
I used to tell people I thought I was going through the change. My mother always talked about getting hot and cold, hot and cold. My dad used to complain about it, and I thought, but whatever she's got, I got too. Good grief, this is awful. And
That's amazing.
it was amazing, that we didn't equate that lack of comfort with the heating problem, right?
Right.
My mother would not let us put a heat pump in. Later on, after she passed, I put a heat pump in for my dad, but he made me oversize it. I still wasn't happy about that. So we ended up putting a 3-ton heat pump in, a 1,200 square foot rancher, by the way, on a cross. So we're talking, it's also brick. I mean, it's just, it's amazing. And even then, short cycle. And so when I remodeled the house to move in, I told my wife, we're taking this 3-ton out, we're putting a 2-ton in. Are we going to be warm? And so that brings me into the next question, or the next topic. So everybody will tell you that load calculations are conservative by nature, right? They typically overestimate the need for heat. Would you guys at least agree with that part so far, right?
Yeah, Manual J is very specific. In the book, they say, be aggressive because there are built-in factors of safety into the protocol, specifically for heating. So they're straight up, they're loud and clear about it.
Watch out, Huff. I know you're a preacher on the weekends. Eric can quote Manual J chapter and verse.
I kind of get that feeling already. And so I will tell you that actually the load went down. If I went back, so I'm really unsure of the insulating value in the attic, to be quite honest. I know my dad added, so I was a little conservative on that. But when I actually upped it to like R50, it came down even a little more. But let me tell you what my actual load is. So I clocked my load at 16 degrees outside. I called it one morning before the sun come up, right? So no solar help here. And I found my balance point to be 14 degrees, right? Below 14, I could not maintain 70 degrees in my home. It would slip by a degree. At 14 degrees, my heat pump was able to keep up with 0 resistance heat. By the way, I don't even use resistance heat for defrost.
Amazing.
And people are like, well, don't you get cold? I'm like, my wife has yet to complain. And so when she complains that she feels a cold blast, I'll do something about it. But until then, my
Yeah.
electric heat's completely locked out. And so I was able to clock that at 16 degrees outside. I was my 2-ton heat pump was producing 17,000 and some change BTUs, which was meeting my load, right? So at 14 degrees is where my actual balance point is. If I do the balance point worksheet, the load would show my balance point to be up into the mid to low 20s, right? So obviously I didn't get as aggressive as I could, but it was a lesson to me, right?
Yep.
And so what is I know that the numbers that Manuel J, the book has in there are kind of solidified. Is there any look in the future of that? And what trying to think of the right word to use here. Sometimes the words leave my brain, but what advice do you have on how to be aggressive? Because obviously I missed the boat a little bit. It's not the software, it was me, right? Because I'm the one
Right.
telling it what these factors are. So what advice would you have for it to help us get more aggressive in that?
Sure. So just really quick, we're part of the ACA technical committee, and we've been asked to help with the next iteration of Manual J. We certainly have lots of thoughts on how it can be improved. The protocol itself has been continuously improving over the years, and there's always room for improvement. There's a whole standards making process, and we're excited to be part of that. In terms of guidance for the existing protocol, what our own software follows, Manual J in their normative section, they talk very specifically about being aggressive, and what they mean by that is if you are, let's say you're unsure if you've got a 2x4 stud wall, if you've got R11 or R13 in the cavity. Their recommendation is to lean towards the R13. Be more aggressive. If when you're trying to verify key details about the home, lean towards the higher performance number that result in a lower load calculation because of the factors of safety that are built in. And Manual J, as of right now, there are no internal loads that are included as part of the heating calculations. There's no solar gain calculations that are done as part of the heating loads. These are decisions that were made for very good reasons. So typically in the heating season, you have your coldest temperatures at night when there's no solar gain. But in your own home, there's all kinds of things that are happening at any given moment in a real building. So Manual J doesn't account for snow loads on your roof, which actually act as a fantastic insulator. So if you could have a design load, maybe at your house of around 20,000 BTUs heating, but in actual reality, it could be, well below your design temperature, but you've got good snow on your roof and you're still holding up just fine because of that extra benefit from the snow that you have. So the general recommendation is if you're deciding between two assumptions, like around insulation, go for the more aggressive number. And wherever you can, do some kind of testing to verify. So don't just totally guess at infiltration. If you can, do a blower door test. Actually get a CFM 50 number and use that. So the big assumptions that you're making about a home, you want to really drill into those and spend a little bit of time just to verify those numbers.
That's great. You know what? One of the things I find, technicians can benefit so much from having conversations like this. So for years, I concentrated so much on the equipment because that's what was my role. I did tech support for 17 years. But I found most of the times when I went out, I was dealing with more of a load issue in a lot of cases, especially when there was dehum problems. And so honestly, it was more the envelope and the load practices or non-practice of, right?
Yeah.
That really created a lot of the issues that we had to run on. It wasn't the equipment at all, but it was always kind of assumed, right? And so, I always recommend to technicians learn about the engineering side, learn about what a load calculation is, things like that. It'll really help you be a better technician, because sometimes you're looking in the wrong area, right?
Yeah,
The
for
box
sure.
is fine, right? It
Yeah.
says, why was that box chosen? Is that the issue? Things like that. Um, so to make sure that we kind of, in the essence of time, get through this, um, future plans. What do you guys got on the horizon for Amply?
All kinds of great stuff. We joke all the time that our product today is the worst it's ever going to be. So we're constantly making improvements. We're shipping new features roughly once every 2 weeks. And I think so far we've built, we think, kind of like the fundamentals of our product. And in the coming months, we really want to get much deeper into some really interesting stuff that are very specific to heat pumps. So we want to really be able to help our customers not only with the load calculation side, so manual J, but also get into really supporting equipment selection and all of the trade-offs that go into that. So both dealing with what people think of as the real standard manual S, but also there's a whole bunch of other trade-offs that a practitioner, that a designer should be thinking about, that manual S is silent on. And we think there's some unique challenges for heat pumps there, and some opportunities to really make the process just more straightforward and empower the comfort advisors that are out in the field to make the best decisions with the homeowner and have great outcomes for the homeowner and the contractor. So we're looking to invest there. We've got some really exciting new ideas on how to sort of bring the product to life even more using augmented reality, some really unique visualizations of the home that just make it more intuitive, easier to pick up and learn our product, and have better outcomes for our users.
That's great. And I look forward to those. Have you guys ever had the experience of, or done this, where it's so easy with this kind of technology when you're in the home to not only do the load, but also you can show where if they made certain improvements, how the load could be reduced and the equipment size differently. Have you guys had any experience with that, or had any contractors that you've worked with do that successfully?
It's
Absolutely. I mean, yeah, go ahead, Ed.
I mean, it's one of the things that we've built in. Like you'll get other manual J programs have, like, you'll change something, you got to click ahead 17 screens to find out how your load changed. Like it's a small thing, but as soon as you change something in Amply, you get immediate feedback. And so you could just say, like, what would happen if you changed your R value in your roof? Boom, you just took off 2,000 BTUs. If you could bring this duct system into conditioned space, that's one of the ones that blows my mind. Like thousands of BTUs would be changed if you do that sort of thing. So it's fundamentally built into it, and it's one of the things we flag when we demo our product or do an onboarding, that you can make those sort of live adjustments and have a conversation with a homeowner. And that's particularly powerful in states where the incentives are linked between heat pumps and weatherization. But yeah, we love that sort of thing, and we plan to do more.
I was teaching the energy skilled heat pump class yesterday, doing another session had 6 technicians there, got talking about load calculations. I'm like, guys, you want to check this out? And I literally did just that. I pulled up the load for my house, showed them the 3D scans, the whole 9 yards. They're like, man, that is so cool. But then I showed them, watch what happens if I'm like, you know what, if I add insulation to my attic, watch what happens. And they can see that number change,
Yeah.
and they're like, well, this, to me, it's to not do a load calculation when things like Amply exist. It's just, I always say criminal, but people always look at me weird when I say that. But it's like, how can we not do this, right? How can we not do right by the end user, right? So real quick before we get to the demo, the new sizing manual S download that I saw on your website. Can you just touch on that briefly?
Yeah, sure. So it's a very simplistic tool. It's a spreadsheet tool. It doesn't cover all of manual S. It's really focused on inverter based, modulating heat pumps specifically, and it covers two key categories. If you're in a dry climate, or you have dedicated dehumidification, or if you're in a non-dry climate, it follows the manual S protocol and guides a user through it. So all you need to do is pull data for the equipment that you typically install, and we will help, in the spreadsheet, do all of the interpolation that needs to be done. So let's say your operating conditions for your equipment are in between the test points for the heat pump. So like the test points are at 47 degrees Fahrenheit, 17 degrees Fahrenheit, so on and so forth. Let's say your design conditions are 20 degrees. Well, to figure out whether your heat pump's going to have enough capacity to meet the manual J loads, you need to kind of figure out where it lies between those two numbers, and it's a big pain. And you have to do it at many different points for heating, cooling, latent capacity. So the spreadsheet is meant to just help with that piece. It is just a spreadsheet. We'd love feedback on it, but we felt like we just needed to get something out there. We were surprised that there was no other little tool like this, and we really care about heat pumps, so we built it to really focus on the latest inverter-driven modulating heat pump equipment to help those kind of contractors with this work. Yeah, and it's available free.
That's awesome. I haven't had a chance to actually use it yet, but I do have an inverter heat pump in my house, and I remember sitting down with the with the load originally when I was, didn't have the break to my wife. I was going down in size, and her fear in her eyes is but sitting there with the extended performance tables trying to map out, what this is going to do, and so I can't wait to try that, and I'll send you some feedback once I play.
Sounds great. Would love that.
About that. So I want to use our last remaining 15 minutes for you to just really showcase how this thing works, because I think it's amazing, and folks who aren't into this, I think once they see it, they'll be into this, right? So if you guys could show off a little bit, that'd be great.
Sounds good. Ed, why don't you do the demo, man?
Yeah, okay. Happy to do it. Huff, it's going to take 1 sec while I connect my iPad to the Zoom. And as I do this, we only run on iPad Pros because they have the Lidar scanner required to do the sort of fast and accurate scan of the home. And all right. And it's got the screen real estate to make it a really good sales tool, and be able to manipulate the 3D model kind of nicely. All right, so you guys can see my screen now?
Yes,
sure
sir.
Can.
All right, sorry, those are my daughters. I'm gonna start a new one. Huff, I'm naming it in honor of you. I'm gonna go ahead and put in my parents' address. Misty Harbor Lane, East Falmouth. That's them. All right, so we'll help you. We'll suggest which close addresses start to look like it. When we do that, we've brought in some information from a real estate database to give a comfort advisor a jump start on what they're walking into. Also helps us inform what likely construction values are in the home. So you can see here, stories, bedrooms, living area, all easy to update. So one thing, my parents have a conditioned basement. This nice little icon of a home updates automatically. And this gives a comfort advisor a live sense of, have I scanned everything that I need to scan? Here's where you control a whole bunch of stuff at the house level for the load calculation, stuff like infiltration, which Eric rightly said, if you got a blower door number, you should put that in there. Average is probably about right for my folks' home. Conditions come in automatically. We make a whole bunch of assumptions based on the home, from the age of the home and the size of the home. My parents are empty nesters, there's only 2 of them in there. But the real magic comes in when you get over here. You'll notice that we're ACCA approved for manual J's, but we really wanted to be heat pump design software. So we're oriented around the heat pump design. What's the indoor equipment? What's the outdoor equipment? And what do you need to do for electrical or some other things? Like, do you need to remove an existing furnace? The way our users use it today is, it's a great manual J load calculation tool, but it's also a really good sales conversation tool, right? So after they kind of come into a home and have that kitchen table conversation with a homeowner saying, why am I here? Like, what problem are you trying to solve? How can I be helpful? Well, then they're going to do a walkthrough of a home. And so while they're doing that walkthrough, they may as well gather as much information as accurately as they possibly can. So I hit that plus sign. It starts the scan. This is my first scan of the day. It takes a second to warm up. All right. So once I have the white lines in the 3D model, I'm scanning. And I'm sorry for the torso shot of me on Zoom right now. But you can see it goes pretty darn fast. I stay ahead of the white lines because I'm feeding the iPad a whole bunch of data. All right, what'd that take? Like 10 seconds. Now, it's not a huge room, but we got all the quirky, weird details of my 125-year-old top floor New England condo. I could scan more space. We recommend scanning a zone at a time, but I'm gonna say I'm done here just to give you a sense of it. I'm gonna call this the office. I have loads right off the bat, not a very big space. To edit the loads, I tap here into the 3D model. I can engage with it, and just by tapping on features, that's how we change the load calculations. So, my house, it's a little bit aggressive there. Mine's 2x4 because it's so old, but it has been gut renoed, so it's more like R13 with no board insulation, siding, and stucco. And here's that live feedback on how my BTUs have changed for that. And we can do that for anything. I won't bore the audience with you can do it for windows, walls, it all works fundamentally the same way. And once you've done it for that space and you've got a load you like, we're in this picture taking mode where we flow right into having a conversation with the homeowner about the system you're going to design. So I take this picture. Sorry, my desk is in there. Oh, I forgot. I'm mic'd in here. Could you still hear me, Eric?
Yeah, we're good.
Yeah,
great. All right, so I'm gonna pick the unit size, way oversized for this space. I can add it to the photo. I can visualize it. I can have that conversation with the homeowner. Does that look the way you want it? Oh, it doesn't. We could do a floor unit. That's going to be way oversized based on your typical floor units. But the more likely and best answer for a room like this is, since I have open attic space, I'm going to do a ducted system. And I can take a whole bunch of notes. There's an open attic above where we can put a horizontal air handler and run low static ducting off of it to cover the 3 small bedrooms on the top floor. So the idea is eradicate homework for comfort advisors. Let them do an exceptional, fast job in the home that lets them have a great conversation with the homeowner. This is made to just be a conversation piece. Let's talk about the scan. Why am I doing it? Let's talk about the size. Let's talk about the equipment. Where's it going to go? Are you bought in? Am I bought in? You can do similar stuff for outdoor. Take pictures, place the equipment, draw in slim duct, take pictures of electrical in order to figure out you need a sub panel, things like that. And then we produce some great documents. Let me just show you a fully designed one. Sorry, I should have used the search function. Here's my Jane Doe house, where I've scanned a whole bunch of homes, floors. Here's all my scans. I've placed outdoor equipment. I've drawn in the slim ducts. Obviously, this looks terrible, but homeowners often care. And we can produce your ACCA-approved manual J document, heating loads, cooling loads, sensible and latent, everything you'd expect in it, all the details, and then each scan becomes a chapter of the manual J. And I can still interact with the manual J document to say oh, whoops, I missed that window. That's actually a single pane with a storm. And then we also produce this. We also produce this design document. Oh, tapped too far out. We produce this design document, which is a great handoff to a homeowner, so they have a sense of the system you designed. It's also a great handoff to the installation crew, so they know what they're going to put in. And few rebate agencies and utilities are expressing interest in this sort of thing as well. All very easy to export. So the idea is get in there, do your full documentation, but faster and more accurately and more visually engaging than you've been able to do it before. And so I think you can see here, I think we're exceptionally good load calculation software, and we're okay design software. As Eric suggested, our goal for this year is to become exceptionally good heat pump design software.
Wow. I actually learned a few more things, and I've been messing with it, right, doing my own house, and I still yet you taught me a few things that I haven't found yet. I didn't realize that when you do the preview of the manual J that you could actually still interact with that.
Yeah.
Um, and in the preview design, I hadn't used that, messed with that yet either. So, wow, this just it's a great product. You guys have really knocked it out of the park. And so, last question to kind of close this out. Um, if there's one or even a few things that you would tell someone who's nervous about doing their first load calculation, what advice would you offer?
As Eric
Just embrace.
thinks, I got. Oh, go ahead.
Go ahead. No, you go ahead, Ed. Sorry.
If you do it right, it's going to come out way smaller than you expect. We had on our podcast Adam Muffich from the National Comfort Institute, and he had a great line, which is like, when I did it right the first time, it was terrifying. I was taking out an 80,000 BTU furnace, and he was telling me to put in a 2.5-ton heat pump. But like you've got to do that and be ready for it. So setting that expectation, if you do it right, and you're like 90% of the HVAC industry, you've been oversizing by 50 to 100% for your entire career. So get ready for a number that's going to be a little bit startling for what it should actually be.
Yeah. Yeah. It's good to set expectations that way. And, what we recommend is, certainly buy a copy of Manual J. You can just to educate yourself. There's also a lot of great free content online, whether on YouTube videos. I'll put in a shameless plug for the Heat Pump podcast, where we talk through a lot of these issues with incredible experts from across the country around these challenges that folks are coming up against. But what's great with tools like Amply, you can really learn how to do a proper load calculation in a few hours of playing around in a home, versus conventional software that you often would need a week-long course to learn all the details, just because the software itself is so challenging to use. We're trying to make the process as accessible as possible, so that it's really easy for more people who are trying to do the right thing to be able to actually do the right calculations, the right work, the right designs. And so, the hardest thing is just to get started, but just get out there, give it a try, and you're gonna discover that you're gonna end up with better outcomes, both for you and your business and for your customers. They're gonna be more comfortable. You're gonna have fewer callbacks. It's gonna be great.
I'll give one more slightly less shameless plug, because it's not for us. Alex Meany and Ed Janowak. So Alex runs his own company, and Ed Janowak's with ACA are two of our favorite ACA trainers on Manual J. Sorry, Alex is an ACA, but they're two of our favorite ACA Manual J trainers. And they make it interesting and fun, which is like kind of hard to do. So if folks are looking to get into it, Alex Meany and Ed Janowak are tops.
Yeah, I love both of those folks.
Yeah.
Funny thing is, I took the ACA Epic course many years ago, and of all people, Alex Meany was in that class.
Oh, wow.
I hadn't seen him in years, and all of a sudden his name popped up, and I was like, when I saw his face, I'm like, that's definitely the guy. He was brilliant then, and he is certainly brilliant now. And of course, Ed is just amazing as well. I just wanted to tell you guys personally, though, I appreciate what you're doing. Our industry needs folks like you, but I appreciate it not just from a software aspect and what it does, but when I reached out to you guys, when I put in the information in your website to get contacted, I was so blown away at how fast you contacted me and how quickly you were able to set up a meeting, and how, Ed, when I got on with you that first, for that demo, your passion for it. And same way now, even with this recording with Eric, your all's passion really shines through your work and what you do. I've seen some great products, but people that weren't passionate about it, and it's just not the same. And so seeing what you guys are doing, how you're always evolving, making the product better is just, it really is a breath of fresh air. And so we appreciate you both. Thank you so much for being with us and taking this time. And we greatly appreciate it. I can't wait to share it with folks. You guys knocked it out of the park.
Thanks, Huff.
Yeah, thank you so much. We love doing this. We're in it for the long haul. We're having a blast, and we love learning from everybody that we get to connect with. And so it's just been so much fun to do this with you today.
Oh, yeah, that's awesome. Thank you guys so much.
Sir.
Hey, folks, I hope you enjoyed listening and watching that interview and demo with Ed and Eric. And again, their website will be down in the descriptions. And I always tell people, I never say this, but if you enjoyed it, please hit like and subscribe. We're trying to get this channel kind of off the ground here. And so anything you can do to help us out would be appreciated. Maybe share with your friends that you think might actually be able to benefit from seeing this interview and demo with Amply Energy. Take care, folks, and see you again soon.